Greetings, Earthling Reader friend, and I am here today with a book haul. So I was recently on vacation in Massachusetts and I was able to pick up a ton of used and new books, mostly used because, you know, I'm cheap. But I wanted to show them to you today, so I figured let's just get into it. So the first thing I have is a book I'm super excited for, and it is a primer for stargazers. This is a vintage book about astronomy, and it has illustrations and myths that different constellations are based on, and it is really just a basic guide to astronomy for beginners, and that's what I am, so it's really cool. The next three books I got are all classics, but I got them because I love classics and because they're cool. So I got The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy and Other Stories. I love Leo Tolstoy. I've only read War and Peace, but I want to read Anna Karenina, and I figured why not read some of his other works while I'm at it. Then I got Oscar Wilde's It's a Picture of Dorian Gray and three other stories. I've actually never read the three other stories included in this collection. I have only read The Picture of Dorian Gray, so I'm super excited about those. And I also got Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I have heard about this and I know I'm gonna have to read it in college, not this year, probably the year after it. So I wanted to read it and get a head start on the game. Next, we have two of my favorites. I got a copy of The Exorcist because my library, the copy of in my library is missing chapters, and I've never read the full thing, so I got a copy of The Exorcist so I could actually read the full text. Then I got Henry James' The Turn of the Screw, which also includes other short novels that he wrote. So I am super excited because The Turn of the Screw is one of my favorite ghost stories ever. I remember reading it when I was really young, so I'm super excited for this collection. I also got Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. This is my favorite duology ever written, ever. I've loved it since I was a kid, and I got this copy so I can highlight my favorite passages and mark pages and draw in the margins and everything that I want to do, and it's one of my favorite books ever, so I got it. Then I got some more. I got Little Women, which I had a copy of Little Women and I don't know where it went, so I got another one for like 50 cents because another one of my favorite books, I'd like to write in it and highlight my favorite passages to just get a little bit more out of the reading experience, because it is one of my favorite books, so I want to write down stuff in the margins, take notes. I also got Call of the Wild and White Fang by Jack London, and again, another two of my favorite books that I really enjoyed, that I read when I was a kid, and I figured why not have a copy on hand. My favorite Stephen King book ever, I know a lot of people are going to judge me for this, but Misery is my favorite Stephen King book. I've never owned a copy, but I found this one for $3, and it's in pretty good condition, and yeah, so I figured why not have a copy of my favorite Stephen King book. Then I got the first 4 books in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, so I got Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Life, the Universe, and Everything, and So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. Next is another Stephen King book. I got Carrie. I've only read Carrie once and I don't remember that much of it, so I wanted to get another copy just because obviously I've seen the movie about 1,000 times, but I've never I've never owned a copy. I know I've read it, but I've never owned a copy of it, so I figured I would go a little bit in depth and read, read it analytically and write it and do things to the copy. I don't know. Then I got Anastasia. I love this movie. The musical movie. I love the musical and the animated movie. I've never seen the live action movie. But I figured why not read the book, the novelization. Then I got Stephen Crane's The Red Badge of Courage and 4 other stories. The Red Badge of Courage is, I've read before, but I've never read the 4 other stories that Stephen Crane included in this. So I figured why not reread The Red Badge of Courage and read 4 more stories in the process. Then I got The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I've never read it, but I looked at the synopsis and it looked really interesting, so I figured why not. It was worth it. Even if it's bad, it'll still be worth it. Then I got Christine by Stephen King. This is actually one that I've never read. I've only seen the movie. This is a Stephen King book that I've only seen the movie of. So I got Christine for $2. Really worth it. So I'll be reading this one probably around Halloween. This is one of my favorite ones. If you follow me on Instagram, plugging that cat coffee at that cat coffee on Instagram, all lowercase. I got The Witness for the Prosecution, a play in 3 acts. Witness for the Prosecution is probably one of my favorite short stories of all time, and one of my favorite films of all time too. I think it's perfectly executed in the way that it's written, and I own the short story, but I found the play and I was like, I have to have it. It was worth it. And anything Agatha Christie is totally worth it. Yeah, this is Morga. It's a memoir. It's called Morga, Life and Death. It is the pathologist's memoir, and Dr. Vincent DeMeo, and a crime writer, Ron Francel, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, they go through DeMeo's life as a pathologist and medical examiner, and some of the famous crimes that he's investigated through his job. I just thought it would be different. It was an interesting read. I mean, not a lot of people read about medical examiners, so I figured it would be a pretty interesting, journey to read through this. So I picked this up kind of on a whim, just because I love true crime, and he goes over some famous true crime stories in this. So I figured, why not? This is another Stephen King. This is the Tommyknockers, which is a chunk of a book. Look at this. That's giant. That's huge. Someone just said this is really good on Instagram. I was talking to someone on Instagram and they were saying how good this was. They were like halfway through and it was really good. So I picked this up, and another $3 book. It's Stephen King, so I figured why not give it a shot. So I'll be reading that sometime. This next one my dad was super excited for. He told me about it like years ago, and I found it in paperback, and this is The Source by James Michener. And I have never read this. I read James Michener's Space. I've never read any of his other books, but this is The Source. So I'd like to read this because it looks really, really good. It's just, I like how he writes, but I've only ever read Space, so I liked how Space was written. But I really want to read this because my dad said it was really good. I have Sail Away Ladies, which is centered around women in Cape Cod who were either on sailing ships or who were pirates. So it's 12 Cape Cod women who are in sailing history, who were famous, and I liked it because it was women in sailing, and it's women during this time period. So I thought this would be interesting to read 12 little bios about different Cape Cod women who were on sailing ships in this time, and what they did, what they contributed. I thought it would be interesting. And it's also an autographed copy, which I just recognized now. If you were following me on Instagram while I was away, I got this. I call this the treasure of the trip because this is H.G. Wells' complete short stories. It's 1,038 pages, 63 stories, and it is so worth it. I love H.G. Wells. I have loved H.G. Wells forever. I read a lot of his work. My favorite novel of his is probably The Time Machine or The Island of Dr. Moreau, but I have not read all of his short stories, so this is going to come in handy because I will be binge reading this. I'm trying to hold off, but I probably will binge read this by the end of the year. And I got more paperbacks. I got an abridged version of the Phantom of the Opera because I've read the full Phantom of the Opera, and I wanted to reread it for a couple months. So I got an abridged version just to refresh my memory, because I remember everything that happened in the book. I just want to go over it again because I was thinking of doing a video on it, or not. I don't know. I'm still thinking of if I'm going to do a video on the Phantom of the Opera. But yeah, I got this abridged version of it. I also got a copy of Wuthering Heights because I'd like a copy to write in. I love Wuthering Heights. I love everything the Brontes wrote. But I do love Wuthering Heights. I think it's really artistic. So I got a copy to write in. Then I got another like 50-cent book. This is The Raven and Other Poems by Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is one of my two favorite poets, the other one being Emily Dickinson. And so I got this so I can highlight my favorite verses of his poems and stanzas. So yeah. Then I got Mr. Parker Pyne Investigates. I've been looking for this forever. And I love Agatha Christie, so I've been looking for this. I've never read a Parker Pyne story. I've read Miss Marple, Tommy and Tuppence, and Poirot, and then I've read a couple of her standalones, but I've never read Parker Pyne. So I was interested in this. Anything Agatha Christie intrigues me a lot because I think she was a really cool author, and I also really just like the way she writes and the way she plots her things out. I think it's spaced well. So yeah, so I got this one. This is Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I know they made a mini-series out of this. BBC made a mini-series out of this. But I saw it in this cute little bookshop, and I actually saw it in a couple bookshops, and I was like thinking of getting it. And then the last one that I went into, I saw it, and I was like, you know what, let's just pick it up. I've never read it before. But I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I've read a lot of other Charles Dickens stories and novels, so I was interested in this one, so I figured why not. The next three books are three middle grade books. First we have Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. This is about a girl who writes about a story and it becomes real, I think, in the forest in the back of her grandparents' house. This looks cute. I read the first like 2 chapters. I found it in a toy store actually, and I read the first couple chapters, and it looked really good for a children's book, and the cover intrigued me also, not gonna lie. I mean, look at that cover. I liked it. Then in the same toy store, in the same span, I also got Wildwood by Colin Molloy. This one, I don't really have an explanation. The cover. That's pretty much the explanation. It's just, and plus it's illustrated also. Like it has, see, it has illustrations. So I really, really like it. I gotta say. I don't know what it's about. It's about the woods. That's all I know, and I'm super excited. Then we got The Mysterious Benedict Society. This I have never read, actually. I'm kind of ashamed to say that I have never read this. I've read like all these children's books, but I've never read The Mysterious Benedict Society. The book sale lady, the clerk at the bookstore, she said it was similar to A Series of Unfortunate Events, which is one of my favorite book series. So I'm hoping that this is good. I got the first book, and I'm really looking forward to it because I read the synopsis and it sounds interesting, and it's a series. So maybe you'll see me reviewing this on the channel. The Complete Stories of Flannery O'Connor, because why don't you want this? It collects all of the stories from all of her short story collections and stuff that hasn't been in her collections. It was on sale, and I was like, why not? You know, I read A Good Man Is Hard to Find, and I've read a couple other ones of hers, and I really enjoyed them. I like the darkness of them. I think they're very interesting and intriguing. So I got her complete collection of short stories, and I'm looking into buying some of her novels. I haven't gotten there yet. And finally, the last book is something I am super excited for. This one, I saw it, and as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to have it. And thank God it was on sale, or else I would not have gotten it. And that is Nabokov's favorite word is Maeve by Ben Blatt, and it is statistics about classic books. It's different statistics and different tropes and stuff about different famous works, like how much they use a certain word, how much a certain sentence adds to it, or it's just different percentages and statistics about famous works of fiction and literature. And I just thought it was really funny, the title, so I thought, why not? And some of my favorite books are mentioned in here, so I thought it would be super cool. That's all of my book haul. That was my super long book haul that I got on vacation. So anyway, new videos will be coming soon, so I will be making videos more often. Yeah, anyway, Catch you later.